Time for the 49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
What is going on, faithful? It is a awesome day, episode 855, but this is a big one because I got one of the best in the business, Rob Lowder, next to me. Don't give me that face, Rob. Don't do it. How are you today?
I'm great, man. Workday's done. I'm chilling. I've put shorts on. I don't have shoes on. I'm in an air conditioning room in Fresno. I'm great, man. I'm great.
It's the little wins.
Right.
The shorts and no shoes and air conditioning. It's the trifecta. I love it. Now, there's so much news, and I'm so excited about today, but before we do this, I got to let everybody know. I've said this a lot of times on the show. Whenever we're in season and the 49ers game ends, which usually I'm on the road or in an airport or whatever, the first thing I do, Rob, well, after shower and brush teeth and all that stuff,
Of course.
whenever I wake up the day after a Niners game, first episode, first podcast I go to, Striking Gold, Rob Lowder, first listen every single time. So I just want to say thank you. Love what you do. And if you haven't followed Rob yet, whether that's on Twitter, Rob_Lowder, or the Striking Gold podcast, wherever you get your audio platform, go check it out. This dude... His coaching background, works with kids, good dude. You're not hot takey, which is a compliment. That's a compliment. Hopefully you take it as what.
I would think so. I guess there's every now and then a topic will come around where I have a passionate opinion about it. I don't try to be boring, but I just try to be reasonable because I don't know. I feel like there's so much. It's the same thing as like everything in life, politics, what have you. There's all kinds of people way over there and way over there. And it's like, I think there's a lot of reasonable stuff to be had somewhere in the middle. So, and I don't know, man. It's just, I feel like a lot of people set themselves up for some sort of disappointment. Like, just kind of try and just take things reasonably. And you never know, man. You can never, it's like that saying, I'm going to butcher it right now, but it's like, if you set your expectations super low, then you can never be disappointed. You know, so it's like something along those lines. Doesn't necessarily perfectly apply, but that's kind of how I go about my covering the 49ers.
That's I would say I applied that very well to my my marriage and the fact that my wife, I helped set those low expectations for her. And guess what? I've yet to I'm sure I disappoint her all the time. But here we go. We got lots of stuff to get to today. OTAs started today. Now, organized team activities is what they are referred to as, and a lot of the star kind of whatever players aren't really getting in. You saw some videos today out there of, Brandon Ayuk and all that kind of stuff, and that was a lot of fun. But OTAs is a good time because it's the first time of this team, the 2023 49ers, as they are assembled, get together. Rob, first question. What are some things that you're kind of hoping to get some clarification on through this OTA process? Or is it merely just, you know what, they're going to get together, build some team camaraderie, see who's in shape, who's in not, and that's basically all we get from it?
Well, I think the most obvious answer is these are the first snaps where you're going to get any sort of remote clarity to any quarterback situation whatsoever. And I'm not saying a job can be won or lost in OTAs. It's nothing along those lines whatsoever. But this is the first times where those quarterbacks, and if you think about it, Sam Darnold just got here. Trey Lance has been here, but hasn't been here in terms of being able to build chemistry with these guys. And so this is the first time those guys are going to be taking snaps together, building some sort of chemistry with the receivers, competing against each other. And anytime, no matter what anybody tells you, anytime you step onto a football field, it's a competition. That the whole core of the game is competition. So it might be super low-key. It might be we're just getting started and we're out here in shorts. But anytime one of those dudes throws a football, it's a competition. And coaches are noticing that. They're all human beings. Every throw gets put into their brain and forms an impression. So that's getting started right now. There's not a lot of competition elsewhere in terms of like something that's left unsettled, any type of position battle that needs to start developing. I mean, there's some rookies like Jair Brown and Darrell Luter and stuff that I could see kind of jockeying for maybe a little more snaps than a lot of people are getting them credit for. But other than that, and that's kind of just the case when your first pick wasn't until 99. There's not like any high-placed rookies that you really think are going to come along and kind of surprise everybody. I think to your point, it's more of just the boys are back together again. It's the closest thing to a real football practice we've had since they were really practicing. And, it's just a chance for maybe something to come along and surprising you. Maybe the best thing about OTAs is everybody's going to get a clip of a certain throw and everybody's going to overreact to it. And I cannot wait.
Yeah, especially, we talk about it with the combine when you're doing all the draft research and it's like, the underwear Olympics and whatever else. It's like, we're going to get some clips, quarterbacks throwing without shoulder pads and all that stuff. And, so-and-so's motions fixed.
It's going to be amazing.
Dude. Yeah. Anyway, I like excitement. And so, that's really, really cool. And I sometimes dive into that. But at the same time, it's just like, all right, come on. They're throwing on air. There's not even offensive line or D line out there. But I will be guilty of retweeting some of those. I'm just going to tell everybody now.
Why not? We have nothing better to do. Why not?
That's right. Now, speaking of nothing better to do, I do think the NFL made a lot of decisions I disagree with today, but Shanahan got his rule through. The NFL approved. You can now have a third emergency quarterback that does not count against your active roster. Now, a couple stipulations. Let me just run through this. The third quarterback has to be on your 53-man roster, but in the past, you would make your 6 inactives jump down to 47 for game day. Now, as long as you have that third quarterback, the emergency quarterback, on your 53-man, you can keep him as a reserve. And so you would get, 48, right? Yeah, 48. Right, is that right? So essentially, that's what that is. So my question to you, Rob, what do we call this rule? Is it the Brock Purdy rule? Is it the CMC rule? Is it the Shanahan quarterback? How do we term this? Because every single rule that gets passed is always labeled somebody, the Tuck rule, whatever else. What is this going to be remembered as if this is a rule henceforth in the NFL?
And unless I'm wrong, what's funny about people trying to equate this to the 49ers, and I get it, they're the ones that put it forward again. If you got at a base, you could call it the 49ers rule, the 49ers quarterback rule. But this rule wouldn't even have saved them in that day. Jimmy Garoppolo was on their roster, and he just never recovered to the point. They thought they had a chance to get him back out there to be a backup quarterback. Whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo was physically capable, we'll never know. And he never did. And maybe that was why the front office was so definitive. And no, we're ready to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason because they kept him on that roster. So they had 3 quarterbacks on their active roster at the start of that game. They just really only had 2. So
yeah, I kept saying that whole time, unless Brock is out and it's clearly defined that Jimmy will be the starter, there's no way he's coming back. I just didn't see it. It didn't make sense for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't have made any sense for him to get back out there, especially watching how often the 49ers were giving up pressure to the Eagles. Everybody wants to talk about the fact that Brock Purdy getting hurt. And look, quarterback or defense or offensive line gives up pressure and quarterbacks don't get hurt all the time. So the 49ers were still incredibly unlucky there, but they were given up pressure at an insane rate. So the fact that Brock Purdy got hurt sucks, but they kind of earned it. And then their third quarterback was a guy who couldn't play but was still on the active roster. And then out comes Josh Johnson, who just signed with who was it?
Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, right. So at least he's still in the NFL. I'm happy for him in that regard. So I don't know. Going back to your point, I guess you could just call it the 49ers rule, the 49ers quarterback rule. I don't want to call it the Brock Purdy rule because it's almost like it's like I feel bad for calling it that. It's not his fault, man. And I'm not even one of those guys that piles on Shanahan for the whole blocking an extremely good pass rusher with a tight end thing because he did it before. But it's just I don't know, man. If we got to call it something, just call it the 49ers rule. Wouldn't have saved the 49ers rule. I don't know.
No, it would not. And
they
didn't add in anybody. They didn't have another guy. And again, even if Jimmy was activated, that might have been a different story, but whatever. Now, a couple other rules to this, which I thought were interesting. The only way that quarterback can be activated in the game is if the first and second string quarterback are disqualified or injured and ruled out. So it can't be a coach's decision. You can't bench number one and then do this. It has to be injuries or disqualification. Now, my question to you, how will this apply to the 49ers in 2023? Because I think that's everybody looks backwards, and I get it. But I think that this has a bigger implication for this season with the 49ers 3 quarterbacks they have rostered. So how do you see this for the 49ers?
To be honest, I don't see that affecting them that much. If you've got Brock Purdy, you've got Sam Darnold, and you've got Trey Lance, aren't they all going to be active unless you've traded one of them and he's no longer on the team? So you can have all 3 of them on your roster, and then one of them has to become that designated third quarterback
Correct.
on game days. So, I guess maybe it does. Maybe because it's almost like I'm still kind of grasping the uniqueness of the rule. I mean, it was just
it just passed like
so. I suppose. That it honestly opens you up to a little bit of quarterback drama too, because somebody has to be qualified as that third guy, and you're like, hey, we care about you, but you're the third guy. And are they going to switch back and forth between who's the third guy? Is it going to be the same guy all year? If the 49ers make Trey Lance that third guy, we're going to have to do 18 podcasts about it. So it's like, you won't get to know about it until Brock Purdy comes back. Because then is Brock Purdy going to be on the active roster? And is he going to be the third guy? But he can't really play, so he can't be the third guy. It's like, dude, you could, and I'm literally live, obviously, spilling all this out of my mouth, and it's like thinking about all the scenarios that can possibly come from this rule in the 49ers, and somebody might go from being the number 1 guy to start the season to the number 3 guy by the end of the season. Man, I don't know. I'm just like literally, I feel like that meme with Galifianakis from with all the numbers. Hangover. Like, I'm literally doing that right now in front of y'all, and it's like, dang, this is going to be fun. Like, I feel like we could record an entire podcast just on this rule. Like, and over-under. Hold on, I'm going to set an over-under.
Oh.
5 times we have to talk about this throughout the season.
5. I'm going over.
This rule and who ends up as the third guy, and has someone earned the right to be the second guy? It's like,
okay.
Did you have a MySpace?
I did back in the day.
And you had the top 8. Well, they're gonna be moving guys around like that. I dated myself. I don't care, but it's like they're gonna be like constantly shuffling these around. Maybe they won't. Maybe I'm just having too much fun.
But I think it would be a good problem to have. Like, I know the drama that could be instilled with this and all that things, but
for sure.
If the 49ers get to have the opportunity of having 3 healthy quarterbacks, that would be a wonderful issue. And I know it's going to cause for, whatever. People are going to run with narratives, and so-and-so's a bust or dud or whatever, or Kyle hates this guy. I don't really care about that stuff. The idea of having 3 healthy quarterbacks, if that is Sam Darnold, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, in any order, I don't give a damn, because that means the 49ers have healthy quarterback options, and I would like that. Juan, what's up, Juan? He says, why don't we acknowledge Reddick injured Purdy? Shanahan schemed to play. Croft missed the block. Purdy pump faked. It's a myriad. It's not
all
one
those
issue.
Things. It's like, my answer to that is yes.
Yeah, 100%. Well said, Juan. You're the best there is. I just got through Juan. He does all the film cut-ups for us and helps us with our video processing. Juan, just want to say, man, went through a lot of film today. Crushed it. He is awesome. A couple other things. All right, here we go. Niners get awarded Super Bowl 60. This is the 2026 Super Bowl, so the 2025 season's Super Bowl. This always messes me up because, like, the 49ers won the Super Bowl in 1994, but they played it in 1995, and it always messes me up. But whatever.
Yeah, every time.
It's just a bear trap. What are the let's say this. Okay, this is 3 seasons down the road. Brock Purdy and Trey Lance will be 26 years old at this point. Still very, very, very young. I don't think that this really goes into the team building approach of, Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch, but it sure as hell seems to make it where it's like we're not even less likely that the Niners do this Rams type approach where they just mortgage everything for like a 1 to 2 year Super Bowl window. What are your thoughts on that? Does it even enter into the equation? I don't think York would want to do that anyway, but
you mean like completely selling out to try and
Yeah.
make the Super Bowl in that year?
or before then, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got this year, then 2 more. I don't think that it really applies, but this was one of the questions that came across to me that was emailed to me, and I was just like, yeah, I'll throw it out there. I'll see what Rob thinks.
I've pondered this, like just sitting there staring at the ceiling, going to bed, and I've thought about like how much is a Super Bowl worth? Because obviously, in that moment, it's the absolute pinnacle of your sport, but it's kind of like going to The Last Dance with Michael Jordan and the coach Phil Jackson talking about like you are only successful the moment you commit the successful act, and then after that, you have to do whatever you've got to do to continue being successful. It's not like you don't get to go forward being the Super Bowl champions from last season, and that somehow excuses everything you're going to do that season. So what I'm trying to say is like, yes, the Rams got to that point and they won a Super Bowl, and then everything just fell through the floor. And it's obviously their quarterback situation attributed to that. So I was just wondering to myself, how valuable is a Super Bowl? If you knew you could win a Super Bowl now and then your team was going to be pretty terrible for 5 years, even if you wanted to look at it monetarily, does that add up? Is it worth it? And I think a lot of people would say yes, because you add another trophy to the bin that stays there forever. And I would understand that. And I have no argument either way. But in terms of selling out just to absolutely give yourself the best shot to achieve that goal, it's a tough decision. And I could understand why somebody would argue either way. Like, no, I want that Super Bowl. I don't care about the future. Give me the quest for 6. I want it to be over. I want to come up with some fancy phrase that involves the number 7. I get that. But at the same time, it's just, you would be making a lot of moves that were very contradictory towards what the 49ers have already shown in terms of their ability to build a team and why they make decisions and trying to sustain success and target guys that, they're very specific about the guys they draft and sign. They have to meet their qualifications in terms of personality. And some of these moves would probably go against that. I really don't know, man. I mean, to be honest, I would just keep doing what they're doing and trying to walk that fine line. Now, as time goes on, especially with their bigger contracts, things are going to get more and more narrow. But I just think that I've been so impressed with what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have done since they got here, that I'm like, don't do anything different, man. I understand how important it is to win a Super Bowl. Don't change the way you're building a team just because you think that adding that 1 or 2 more guys and mortgaging the future is going to get it to you, because then you do that and you don't win it, then you're really in trouble and you're really
Could you imagine if the Rams didn't get it? Because there were like 2 calls away from it not happening.
Right.
And I'm with you there.
You don't really like make decisions scared, like you go for it. And you just, in that situation, you roll the dice. But I just think the 49ers are Super Bowl contenders, doing things the right way. Just keep doing what you're doing, and you're just hoping eventually things kind of go your way. And then what's crazy is the 49ers have just been incredibly unlucky in terms of injuries. Like, you're talking about like a 3 or 4 year stretch where they are by far the most injured team in the NFL. And it's like, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep. And Ricky says it would be worth it. We haven't won one almost 30 years. And again, like, if you could, it's a different argument and path for this discussion if you could guarantee it. But the sad news is you can't guarantee it. You can make it look like you're going all in, but injuries happen, things happen, and that kind of discounts it. So it's rough. I want to win the Super Bowl as bad as anybody. I was in Miami, freaking brokenhearted, when we lost that game. So, like, I've been there. I want to win it. We're going to be there. It's going to happen. Now, sticking to the schedule, again, one of the things that I'm just not in favor of, but Jed York is. Thursday night flex scheduling has been brought in. And has been approved. It got passed 24-8. The owners voted for it, and Jed York voted in favor of this. So now from weeks 13 to 17, not the very last week, Amazon has 2 options to flex those games from a Sunday game and bump it up to a Thursday game. You have to give 28 days notice before they do it. I don't like this at all. I don't think it's good for the players. Plus, we planned all these trips to go to these games. Makes it almost impossible on that back end. What are kind of your thoughts that we're now flexing games from Sunday to Thursday in November and December?
I hate anything to do when you mention Thursday. Like anything you tell me about a Thursday night football game can go to hell. Like it just is totally contrary to anything the NFL ever tries to say. Like it's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
Like I don't know am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, enjoy yourself,
Okay,
my friend.
I try to have a cleaner mouth, and especially being a teacher, but it's just like, don't tell me you care about player safety if you're going to do things like giving the 49ers way less rest than any other team in the NFL after we just got done talking about how badly these guys are always injured. They have way more travel miles in addition to the least amount of rest. Then you've got the fact that they've already got 2 Thursday games, which is unbelievably stupid. And then you can take any can a team have 3 Thursday games?
No. So the rules are a team
Max
cannot
2?
have 7 or more primetime games, and Thursday counts as a primetime game. So you couldn't flex somebody that already had that, and you can't have more than 2. So the Niners could be flexed out of the what's it called?
Would they be so lucky?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen because that would be the Seattle Thanksgiving Day, and I think that's going to pull such a big crowd. I couldn't see Amazon choosing a different game over
right.
Niners versus Seahawks. I just don't see it at all. So it's weird. I don't like it. It has just been approved for a 1-year contingency, so they're going to re-vote on the issue next year, 24-8. Usually that's pretty close to not going forward with it, but it's weird. And again, Jed York, he voted for it, so I don't know.
I'm sure the NFL had some type of slide presentation that showed the possible increase in income, and they're like, hell yeah, sign me up, and it's just like, was that Bobo? Give them an extra bye week at least. I think that's where the NFL's going is, they're going to add another week, they're going to add another game, and then I think their next step after that, they're going to keep the 2 Thursdays, they're going to add another week, and then they're going to add another bye week, and that's going to be like probably their go-to schedule for a long time to come. They're just easing their way to that. They're like, look, we'll give them another week. They'll be upset, and then they'll deal with it. We'll give them 2 Thursday games. They'll be upset, then they'll deal with it. And then we'll look like we're, the heroes when we add another week, but add another bye week. You know what I mean? They're like, it's like small little doses of bullshit, and then everybody will just kind of it sucks. I feel for the players. I understand how hard this game is, and not only that, but you have to deal with players playing on surfaces that suck, and then they're playing on games more often than they should. I mean, this is professional football. This is one of the hardest physical tolls on your body that, like, out of any job, it's for that moment, it's brutal, and they just do whatever pays the bills, I guess.
Yeah, it's a revenue move. That's what it is, and so I get it. I totally understand it. I don't like it. I think you can go to the point where the product becomes less and diluted because you're constantly just making these decisions based on revenue and revenue alone. And I think it's bad for the fans. Now,
Dan in the comments mentioned, like, your entire plan's changing for a game.
Yeah.
Like, and with a possibility of only a month's notice, when more than anybody with the amount of organizing you do and traveling you do, that stuff's booked months and months and months in advance. And it's just, like I said, it's got to all come down to money because there's no other reason for it to exist.
Yeah, I spent several hours today working on the Jacksonville game, which is in November. Like that's 6 months out, and it's just like still like running into headaches and scheduling with concerts and all kind of different stuff.
Right.
It's what it is. But I will take this opportunity, Rob, if you don't mind, to plug, if you are coming to a game this year, come party with us. 49ers Rush Road Trip. Here's a quick 20-second clip just to kind of show you what we're about.
Do it.
Games is awesome, but what's even better than that is going to 49ers games with the faithful, joining the community, and we got you covered. The 49ers Rush Road Trip is going into its 4th year of bringing the faithful together, night before parties, tailgates the day of. We got you covered. Go get your tickets at 49ersrushroadtrip.com. All right. Yeah, Rob, we got to get you out to a game this year, man. We're going to start doing a lot of home games, and I guess I should have probably brought this up a little bit. Teased it a little bit. We were in the Bay Area this weekend. I live in Pasadena now. My wife got hired in the East Bay Area, so the Chapmans are migrating north to NorCal, and I'm excited.
Congrats, man. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, we are going to start looking at houses and all that fun stuff, so really excited about that. We're going to be up in the El Cerrito, East Bay area, but close enough to get to games, which was very, very important to me. I'm excited because my boy, my 14-year-old, I told him, I was like, man, we're getting season tickets, buddy. We'll be at all of them. So anyway, we got to get you out, Rob. Do you go to a lot of the Niners games? I know you coach, so that makes it hard.
I go to all the home games, whether it's I do own season tickets. And then I'm up in the media room every now and then. It's usually one or the other. It just depends. I've honestly tried to lean more towards using my tickets to go, because then I get to take my wife and she loves it, and it's just a great time. And it's walking a balance between doing the media thing, which I love, and just probably the more important thing, which is making memories with my wife. So I mean, we were in ponchos for the Seattle game. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't trade that for the world. We sat under ponchos while that game downpoured on us. We walked out. I got to meet Dr. Disrespect, my freaking my hero.
That was a fun episode listening to your podcast, because you've mentioned him a handful of times. So when you went through that, man, that was really cool. I was really happy for you.
Yeah, it was something else. And he really is 6'8". Like a lot of people think he's mexing around. The dude is legitimately 6'8". And I've never felt smaller, but and he was such a nice dude. And he's literally Dr. Disrespect. If you want to know what type of person he is and a 49ers fan he is, he's standing there in his black steel bulletproof mullet wig and with his gaming headset, because that's part of the character. He's got his glasses on, and it's just downpour, not a little bit of rain, sheets of rain. And he's just standing there taking pictures with everybody, no umbrella, doesn't care. He's all about it. And so that was pretty freaking cool. But yeah, so I love doing the media thing, but it tends to be a lot more of an investment into the love account when we go together. So it's a constant pressure.
Yeah, I feel you there. Now let's switch. Let's talk about some Niners stuff. Let's throw the rules. Let's throw the schedule out. What are some of if you had to create a 1 to 2 bullet point pitch on what your biggest concerns for the 49ers this upcoming year are, what is one or two things that just stands out for you? It could be a positional battle, could be schematic, whatever, could be youth or inexperience at a certain position. But what's one big thing that you're just like, man, if I could fix this one thing, or if they could just get the answer to this, smooth sailing from there on out?
I think the first thing that comes to mind without going into the quarterbacks, because we can kind of put that as an obvious. I'll try and not get into that one, because we know the 49ers have never had solidarity at the quarterback position. So why would they have it now? But edge rusher kind of concerns me. And yes, they do have a dude named Nick Bosa, but they lost a lot of talent on that defensive line. Javon Hargrave helps a lot, but he's kind of more of an interior-ish guy. He's so talented they could kick him out every now and then, and he'd probably win some matchups out there. But he's more of an interior guy. Who's opposite Nick Bosa that you're really expecting to have an impact? Charles Omenihu, he's out. Samson Ebukam, he's out. And not that those guys were top tier guys, but they were solid and reliable guys that you could put in there and not expect them to get abused and make a play every now and then. And now you're just like Drake Jackson. See the comment? Sure, but you're talking about a second-year player that was on the inactive list at the end of last season because he was not in game shape. They basically said throughout the season he wore down. And in the beginning, he sure flashed some talent, though, some moves. And Steve Wilkes says he spent the entire offseason in the 49ers building, in and around it, and has added a lot of weight, which is an interesting thing to me because he had some useless weight, the weight you don't want as a defensive player.
I know a lot about that, Rob.
Oh, me too, man. I mean, it's just I just don't have to rush a passer, so I can carry around that useless weight all I want. But so it's I think that a lot of pressure is on him. The 49ers would love for him to just come out of the gates hot and just be like, okay, here we go. We got a guy that can maybe get pushed to 10 sacks. But Is it Cleveland or Cleveland Farrell?
I think it's Cleveland. That's
think
how
it is
I've been
too.
saying it. So I'm invested in it. So I have no like
Right.
approval, but I'm just like, oh yeah, it's Cleveland.
So
I believe it is.
we're talking about Drake Jackson. We're talking about Cleveland Farrell. None of these guys have earned any sort of respect in your mind in terms of what they can produce on the field. There is a likelihood that Chris Kasurik really takes Cleveland Farrell and turns him into a little bit more than we've seen from him. Maybe Drake Jackson is in much better shape. But again, the adding weight confused me because you're talking about an edge rusher that already had some weight that he might want to lose, but maybe they're talking about muscle, which is obviously that would be nice. So we'll see. It's just a little bit. I'm unsure of who's going to be producing decent numbers opposite Nick Bosa, and the more you can get somebody over there to take advantage of everything constantly swinging Nick's way. Is he talking about Joey Bosa?
Yeah. Dan likes to play. He's a teacher as well, so we've got the teacher triumvirate going on here, which is awesome. Appreciate you, Dan, but yeah, he's joking around.
I wish that was the case, but the cap isn't real, but at the same time it is. So good luck with that. That's what always kind of blew me away about the Lamar Jackson thing. I was like, do you have any idea of what they would have to do to make that even come close to fitting? Anyways, again, are they going to rely on Javon Kinlaw to be a solid player? Because that has proven to be completely unreliable. There's just a lot of, for as much talent is on that defensive front, it could come down to Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, and Nick Bosa, and we'll see with everybody else.
Yes, who's going to show up this week? And just
right.
I really hope somebody steps up. Now, and here we go. Josh asked this one. He says, Rob, what are your thoughts on Robert Beal Jr.? Do you think that him as that edge rusher can have an impact early in this year? Or, I mean, he went late. He was picked 173 overall.
Right. And you had that quote from his coach that stood out saying, basically, if you just ask him to set the edge or go get the quarterback, you will have a great player. And that's all the 49ers ask their edge rushers to do. So maybe there's a surprise there. At the very least, you've got a rotation of Beal, Farrell, and Jackson that should be able to, via fresh legs and some development from some of them, hold something down. You know what I mean? But nobody opposite Nick is really, in my mind, is anybody that I'm looking at to like pick up the mantle for what's left. So, but if there's one coach you're just going to say I trust in, it's probably Chris Kasurik. So
I do love that they have, with the new defensive coordinator change, I love that we have like a stalwart at all three levels with Holland, Bullocks, and Kosaric. Like, I really like the experience and the continuity between the head positional coaches that I'm really, really excited about. And, man, I'm really excited about Holland because if Wilkes is in the booth, that means Holland's going to be down on the field making, he's going to be the guy probably leading the 11, adjustment changes on the sidelines when the offense is on the field for the defense, right? Usually it's the linebackers guy, not always.
Right.
I don't know.
So
we'll see.
49ers faithful said their next guy had 4.5 sacks, but even Lynch and Shanahan said they were one of their biggest concerns going into the offseason was their defensive front, and they felt like that fell off a little bit. Yeah. So the fact that the next guy behind Nick Bosa only had 4.5 sacks is kind of part of the problem. And what makes that even more of a problem is unless somebody surprises us, they didn't necessarily get better. So it's a little here now. A second bullet point, I don't really know, to be honest, which is a good thing for the 49ers. It's like you can throw the quarterback thing out there. I got that. The offensive line would have, if this was last season, the offensive line would have been there. Right tackle's an easy second bullet point. What they're expecting out of that position, I don't know. I was surprised. I say I was surprised that they didn't target a right tackle sooner. But I always kind of thought to myself, I was like debating myself on the pod, like, sure, you've got Colton McKivitz, and they seem to have a lot of faith in him. What tells me they have a lot of faith in Colton McKivitz is John Lynch openly said they were trying to trade Mike McGlinchey last year.
Yeah.
So they were ready for him to step in at the beginning of last season. So they must see something that they like, which is cool. Good for him. I hope that pans out. But I always debated with myself. I was like, look, your first pick is pick number 99. Sure, they could have gotten right tackle, but is that even somebody that you expect to just step in and be like a stud? It's not like it's pick number 9 or 10 or whatever it was, Mike McGlinchey. It's a pick number 99. So sure, they didn't go right tackle, but how much of an impact would that right tackle have had to begin with?
Right. And, it's interesting. You brought up the trade scenario with Mike McGlinchey. They said the same thing about Kendrick Bourne, but it was like a year after, because the Patriots tried to trade for Kendrick Bourne. They thought about it, didn't do it. Then they let him walk, and Juwan Jennings, who was on the roster at that time, just stepped in, and it was like, oh, not only did we not miss a beat, but it was an upgrade. I'm not quite so sure McKivitz will be an upgrade over McGlinchey, but, man, it'd be nice if he was. I think in pass protection, he can be. It's the run game. That's the big question mark now. Is Shanahan's always he's always highlighted the run block potential of the offensive lineman is paramount above everything. But now you've got two guys on that line, and Jake Brendel, who you signed long term, and Colton McKivitz, where run blocking's not really their thing. Not that they're bad at it, but there's a big difference from going from Alex Mack to Jake Brendel, and then Mike McGlinchey to Colton McKivitz in the run game. Just the run game blocking is what I'm kind of highlighting here. Does it scare you a little bit that perhaps the Shanahan run game that's just been a staple for so long, literally before he even started calling plays with his dad and Kubiak, I don't think it's going to take a step back, though, just because everywhere else they're loaded. Am I seeing it the same as you?
It's tough to say, man. For a guy that is, Shanahan is pretty self-aware. Like, he knows what he does. And if there was one thing I feel like he would sacrifice last in terms of what his offense can do, it would be his ability to just run the ball. And so I think that he probably has faith in the guys that are out there. I think he has faith in the fact that he's got another year with all these guys. Everybody on that line will have been there for at least 2 years now. And to be honest, I think not necessarily to the point of eating crow, but a lot of us kind of had to eat some words in regards to that offensive line this last season. They weren't great, but they were a hell of a lot better than some of us thought they were going to be. And again, I didn't think they were going to be horrible, but I thought they were going to be worse than they were. And there was, again, when you're in the NFC Championship game, giving up 60-something% pressure rate, you obviously don't have too much to hang your hat on. But I don't know, man. I think that if Shanahan's willing to make these moves, he's got to have faith that those guys are going to be able to prop up the one thing that he would never get rid of, and that's his ability to run the football, because he can always lean on that. And then there's probably a little bit of he's cheesing it now because you've got Christian McCaffrey. Like, he's like, if we can't run the ball at any given weekend, I'll just throw it to him, and it's like, it's unbelievable what just that one player gives you the ability to do. It was one of the coolest trades. It might be the coolest trade they've made since they got here. Jimmy Garoppolo was a great trade, no doubt about it. Almost seemed like it kind of fell into their lap. But, going out and getting Christian McCaffrey and then him showing up and just immediately, like, transforming everything is just – it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, I like that. Salty, he says, you hope Banks Burford can improve more than what is lost going through, from McGlinchey to Colton. I like that. Plus, you have Pryor. I'm really high on Pryor. And I think another reason why the 49ers, these are the words from.
Why are you really high on Pryor? Because you're going to know more about him than me.
I just think that, okay, going from Mike McGlinchey to Colton McKivitz is a completely different body style and play type, okay? McKivitz is mean, tough, dirty, locks on, punches. They're different body types, they're different personalities, they're different play styles, play strengths, completely. Pryor is much more Mike McGlinchey. So you've got this Colton McKivitz. Look, let's do this. Let's put a nasty, road grader, mean as hell dude in there, and let's see how he performs. That's much better in pass protection. And if that doesn't work out, guess what? You got McGlinchey light in Matt Pryor, big, tall, long, just that's who he is. And he's more of the run guy. He's Mike McGlinchey. I watch his film and I'm just like, man, this is Mike McGlinchey. Now, he doesn't have the consistency that he had, and then even if that doesn't work out, you got Jalen Moore. And if that doesn't work out, you got Nick Sikel. And then you're bringing in Joey Fisher. So you've got bodies. It's just who's going to step up. Obviously,
Right.
he's going to Colton McKivitz first, but like there's dart throws here that I think if Colton flames out or doesn't work out, Matt Pryor, I have no problems with. And
Okay.
again, that I keep going back to this too. Do you remember when Tom Compton came in and we didn't really suffer? Like
Right.
that was the weirdest damn thing ever because I was not a Compton guy. I was very upset about that, but he played really well. So I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
It's just another one of those offseason question marks that we're not going to know about. The biggest thing that I always say with offensive line is you don't want there to be a competition there that goes very long because cohesion and teamwork and getting familiar with each other is such an important part of offensive line that if you have two guys constantly competing and rotating, almost like you did into the season last year with Spencer Burford and who was the other guy? I'm just randomly.
Aaron Banks, Nick Sakale. What do you mean, other guy?
No, who was rotating in? He's gone now.
Oh,
He signed with
Daniel
another team.
Brunskill.
There you go.
Sorry
There you
about
go. Yeah. So it's just you don't necessarily want that. You want all of those guys together, constantly taking every snap together, learning how they react to things, and as long as they can figure out who the clear-cut leaders are at all those spots, that's fine. Seems like they've got it. It's just if something's not going to work out, you almost want it to not work out as soon as possible. That way, whoever comes in out of the guys you listed can do it with a quickness, and they can get that cohesion going before you're playing a team like the Eagles.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. We just won. Thank you for this comment. He says, go watch the film on McKivitz. Over on our Patreon channel, I just did he played 31 plays Colton McKivitz in last season, 2022 against the Rams. I think it was week 4. Dude didn't give up one pressure. And whenever Colton McKivitz went in there, the Rams they moved Aaron Donald to edge to go against Colton McKivitz.
That's
over and
because
over and
they
over
didn't
again.
want him going against Daniel Brunskill.
I love it. Yeah, well said. But man, like you saw 3 or 4 times that game, Aaron Donald getting pissed off and punching and barking back because Colton McKivitz is just, I don't want to say dirty, but even whenever I watched his tape at West Virginia back before he was drafted, I was like, dude, this dude pisses every single person off he plays against. Like, he's the last one to make contact every play through the echo of the whistle. That's just who he is. He's a West Virginia Mountaineer through and through. I'm excited about him. I really am. I hope it pans out.
You give me a little bit more confidence.
Look at Dan. He says, go get the Patreon. Man, if you haven't subscribed yet, we got a free 7 days. Go check it out, see if it's something you like. Plus, on Wednesdays at 5:30, we're going through our 1994 49ers season with our watch parties. You can come hang out with us on Zoom. Appreciate that, Dan. Thank you. So let's get to some of these questions before we got to turn Rob loose. He's a busy man. I don't want to take up 2 minutes. I have like 7 more questions I didn't get to, but this is a good thing. This is good. It just means I got to get you back.
I can be shorter. Yeah, that's anytime, man.
All right, so
I say anytime, but then I have 18 million reasons why I can't do it any given day.
That's awesome. All right, let's get to these starred comments that are coming through from Loco Caracha. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that way wrong. Does having Wilkes, who blitzes more, help us help the people opposite of Bosa? This way pressure is created, maybe not even from the defensive line. I will say this. The guys we drafted, Winters, Jair Brown, Bill, like a lot of blitzing guys, even Jalen Graham. What are your thoughts on this? Can you scheme up more pressures now with Wilkes instead of just relying on better talent?
I think so. I think for sure. I think that if the 49ers truly are concerned about what that defensive line is going to be able to produce, the thing that kind of saves them is they have such athletic linebackers that they can kind of get away with losing one of those defenders. You got to think of just generally what happens to a defense when you blitz a corner. You're really leaving yourself. There's going to be a route open. You've got linebackers that could kind of make up for that, but it's the speed at which that pressure gets there. But I think that if anything, Wilkes brings a new creativity to what they're going to be able to do. And like you said, I think a little more of it might fall on the linebackers than it does the corners. They have, like you said, they got a lot of guys that are just fast and really fast. And you've even got Jair Brown, who's very good at blitzing. And, you've got a lot of guys that, whether it's a linebacker, I think you can kind of just look at it that way. Anything outside of the defensive line probably becomes a more viable weapon with Steve Wilkes. And I think that knowing that things are pretty sound in the secondary, they've got veteran safeties. weird to call Hufanga a veteran, but he really feels like he's kind of come into his own in that sense. And so I think that they could probably get away with leaving themselves a bit more vulnerable in order to create those pressures. I would expect Wilkes, if anything, to be more creative with the blitzes he dials up and take advantage of, because now more NFL defenses are going to the fact that they don't care if it's a safety or a linebacker. They just want that extra guy in there to be athletic and fast.
Right.
And if that's a guy that's blitzing off the edge, who's going to be the Sam linebacker? It's never really that clear cut in terms of scheme nowadays, but whoever that third linebacker on the field is going to be, they're all fast. So it seems like they're going to be able to scheme up some pretty good pressure from players other than the defensive line.
I like that. All right, we got one more question. I said about 45 minutes, so this will be our last one. Dan Gay says Santa Clara needs to get an XFL team for Niners players that don't make the team or practice squad. Shanahan uses the practice squad better than anybody else in the NFL. And I would love more local football. I'm a type of guy, I mean, you're a coach. I could watch anybody play football. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I just freaking love football. Have you watched any of the XFL stuff?
Yeah. I was tuning into it every now and then. If I could, it was more of like if I can't find something else to watch and I noticed that it's on thing. I was never like scheduling myself to watch the XFL, but what was the league that Daniel Brunskill came from?
AFL?
Yeah, something like that. I watched that a lot.
AAF.
There it is.
There it is. We were so close.
That team, man.
Yeah, and they had that cool San Diego team that was like the Ships, or something like that. And that's I think that's the team he came from. But I loved it. And I was writing like weekly articles for Niners Nation talking about who on the XFL could possibly move up and come, be somebody that pro teams could be looking at. But I think that as long as that league stays viable, that's the problem, is that we've seen like 3 of those leagues come through in like 3 years. And if the old, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson can keep that thing going, then why not, man? I just think that there's such a massive void in terms of what you get with professional baseball and a little bit with basketball. There's so much talent out there chilling, not getting to play for anybody. So if they could somehow swing it, that'd be pretty sweet. I'd be excited to watch a local XFL team.
I love it. Well, guys, this has been an absolute blast. Now, Rob, where can we get your content? I prepped it a little bit at the beginning of the show. Help me understand, where can we listen to your show so we can get more Rob Lowder in our lives?
Well, it's Striking Gold on the Blue Wire Network. iTunes, Spotify, whatever you listen to, it'll be on there. Striking Gold. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to follow a dude that tweets every 2 or 3 days. But it'll pick up during the season. But as of right now, it's probably
refreshing compared to following me. I way too much, but when Rob tweets, you pay attention. You watch your mouth, Clayton. You watch your mouth. There is no such thing as too many memes.
Oh no, there are never too many. There are never. It's a problem. Yeah, that's it, man. Striking. I mean, that really is. It's kind of a double-edged sword. I feel like I get all my thoughts out on the podcast, so it's like, do I need to tweet about them? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but that's pretty much the end of it. But you can find my opinions on the podcast.
Dude, go follow, go give it and if you're one of those people that's like, whatever, trust me, if you do this, it will increase your football awareness, and it's a show that increases your fan experience. It's not something that's going to piss you off at the end of the day and you walk away grumpy or anything like that. It's just good content. And KP's always on there, and I'm a big fan of KP. So Kyle
he knows ball too.
He's a good dude, man. Good dude. So thank you so much, Rob, for your time. Clayton, the man, he always making it go strong, and that's going to do it for us here. But, Rob, I'm going to be fighting to get you back on the show in about a month or so. Just put it on the end of this just so you can't back out. It's just what it is. It's just what it is.
Anytime, bro. I'm in.
Thanks, Rob. All right, for everybody else, thank you so much. And until next time, stay strong, faithful.